Okay, welcome back. As I said in the previous part, in this part we're going to take a look at this couch object. And this is a very simple proxy object we made in part 1. It's just intended to be used as a base for simulation on. Obviously you wouldn't want to render this out. So what I'd like to do is get this into Marvelous Designer first of all, but as I mentioned, I actually want to export some animation in this particular instance, because what we're going to do is drape cloth over this couch. Unfortunately, once we've draped it on there, we can then start pinning it and moving it around in Marvelous Designer. But it's a really good idea for us if we can just sort of have a large animation that will come down and press the cloth into place for us. Unfortunately enough, with Marvelous Designer, we can. So I'm going to set my timeline here to just about 60 frames. We won't need more than that. And I'm going to key the first part of this up in the air there. This will just put it far enough up so I can actually get the cloth between this sort of crushy thing that's going to come down and the couch object. So frame 1, put it about here, hit S, and this will just keyframe the whole thing. Then move it down, right? Move the slider to frame 60, and then just move it down and get it to about the bottom of the couch. You don't want it too far in, and let's just put it a bit over the front. Make sure we're going to get sort of the cloth at the sides and everything. There we go. Don't have to be too accurate. That'll be about fine. And I'm going to press S again. So of course now if we scrub the slider, you'll see that go up and down. Now you can export any animation to Marvelous Designer. So if you wanted to do some curtains with a curtain tie back, you can actually make a model of a curtain tie back sweeping inwards, bring that into Marvelous Designer and use that to push your curtains around. We could have done that for these where we used elastic instead, but we could have made actual ties that pulled it up. So I just wanted to get you used to the principle of exporting animation from Maya for use in MD. So we can't just export this, it won't work. What we need to do is go to the last frame, select both of these objects and hit Mesh Combine. Okay, the animation will still be there, but obviously now we'll have a combined mesh. Marvelous Designer really works better if you combine all your objects and export them as one OBJ. Okay, so we can now export this as an OBJ. So we're going to export the selection. And I'm going to call this couch for MD. Okay, now we need to get the animation out. Because that OBJ won't have the animation on it, we need to export some animation cache from Maya. So let's select the object and go to the animation menu set. And here we want geometry cache, create new cache. I'm going to just reset that back to normal. And I'm going to call this couch for MD animation. Okay, it has to be one file and the format MCC. This are the readings that Marvelous Designer works with. So we want the range to be the time slider, so in this case frame 1 to 60. Okay, just make sure you've got evaluate every frame. This is all standard, and one file MCC are the important things. So right now, actually don't know why that didn't, couch for MD anim. There we go. Just when I reset the settings, it obviously reset this too. And let's see where we're going to store that. Okay, so I'm going to store it in Final Room Data, which is, this is my project directory on a network drive here. So just open that so I'll know where it is, and I'm going to hit create. And you'll see that cache out, and this is now saved a XML file and a cache file. So if we go to Marvelous Designer, let's just go for new garment and import first of all our OBJ, and there would be our couch for Marvelous Designer, once again in centimeters. And you'll notice that there is no animation on this. If I go up to the animation tab up here, so there's nothing there really. That's because, as I said, the OBJ itself won't support animation. You'll need the animation cache from Maya. So import vertex animation Maya cache, and I'm going to go up to my network scene directory and Final Room cache ncache Okay. So let me just figure out where it saved this, because it doesn't seem to have saved it in the correct place. Let's just geometry cache, create new cache. Okay, it saved it in the data directory. It would normally save it in the nparticles cache directory, but obviously I've given it the wrong one. So bear in mind, you need to make sure you know where it is. So we saved it in the data directory, and there it is, Couch for Marvelous Designer Anim. And again, you've got to import in centimeters, and you've got to tell it what object you want it to refer to. Now we want it to refer to this one. It's the only one in our scene at the moment, so it's nice and simple. Okay, there we go. And if I go to animation now, you'll see we've got this blue bar. This is what's been cached in. So now I've got that animation in Marvelous Designer. So I'll just show you how that will work quickly. I'll just create, first of all, let's find our couch. I'll just create a big sheet to drape over the couch. There we go. Synchronize it over and get it about straight. Alright, so let's just do this really fast just to show you the principle. And we'll go to a particle distance of 40, and I'll just hit simulate. You'll notice this won't move. Now you can't animate in this simulation viewport. You've got to animate the animation menu up here. So now I've got this on, I'm going to select the simulation quality to complete, and this just changes the simulation quality to a higher level. I'm going to click record here, and you'll start to see this move. So this will come in now and push our cloth downwards. Okay, if we stop that and pull it backwards, you'll see that I can actually export this as an animation from Marvelous Designer into Maya as well. So I've got a full cloth animation now. Okay, so let's say I wanted to leave my cloth there, but move this. What I can do is untick this cloth portion here, and now I'll be able to pull that out, go back to the simulation menu, and I can simulate again. This will pop back up. Okay, but it's much more in shape. I could then flatten it down again, pop it up. Lots and lots of things I can do with that. So let's just finish this couch cover, because this is actually pretty simple. Once you start to use animation to sort of shove things into shape, it gets a bit easier to create some of the more complicated sort of indentations and patterns that you want. So let's just use the transform node and make this a little bigger. And this is just basically telling me that I have a cloth animation, and if I start changing this cloth, it's going to break the animation synchronization, and that's fine for us. Okay, so what I want to see is if this drapes to the floor and this drapes to the floor. Okay, so it does. It's a bit long. Let's just scale it back at the back. Let's see here, that's about perfect. And the front. And a little bit more, I think. And maybe quite a bit more. There we go. And it's a little too wide at the sides. Alright, that's maybe just a tad more. And the same with this one. A tad more for you. Oops, tad too much. Okay, there we go. Now, we've got a small problem here, because when let me just make sure that's in the center of the couch. No, it's really not. There we go. When we simulate this cloth out, if we made it much bigger, then we just get a ton of cloth on the floor, and that's not really the look I'm going for. So what we need to do is put some sides on. Okay, so if we click on this cloth, we should be able to see where that point is, and if we click here, we'll be able to see where that one is. So an easy thing to do now is to take this add points, split the line there. Okay, click on the cloth here, see where this other one is, split the line there. Then I'm going to add two splits right next to it, one here and one here. Then I'm going to go up to here, grab this line and just pull it out. And you'll see that I now get a extra extension which I can then sew here and here. So let's just, again, when Marvelous Designer resets its cloth, especially after you've changed it a bit, it goes a bit higgledy-piggledy, so let's just put it back into position. Let's go here, and now we've got that flapper cloth on the side. Maybe needs to be a bit longer and a bit more, and I can see that this one would be, let me just grab this point as opposed to the whole line, move this one back a bit, and this one should be, you know, nearing the length of this one. So let's just pull this one like so. There we go. Now just do the same on the other side. Okay, so that's pretty simple now. We just kind of match this point to this one. So one here, one here, one here, one here, and then pull the center line out. Push this one back a bit, this one out a bit. There we go. Let's just check that it's in the center of the couch. Once again, it's reset to the wrong position, and let's just hit go, see what we get. Okay, so now we've got most of the couch covered, although the back looks like it could do with a bit of lengthening. So let's select our tool here and just lengthen that back up a bit. Alright, and for this I'm going to actually simulate it in 20, not 40. So now I've done the measurements and everything, and I know where the cloth is going to drape. I can increase the particle distance to 20 and just hit go. Just make sure everything hits the floor nicely, front and back. And actually we got a little bit too much at the front and not quite enough at the back. So let's just move this back a little bit. There we go. Alright, this is looking pretty good to me. We want a little bit of leeway in the cloth because when this front thing comes down it's going to pull everything up a bit. So you might even find after the animation is done you're going to need to come in and give it a bit more room to work with. But now we've got everything draped over there, let's stitch these sides together. So this one to this one, this one, this one, and this will stitch the cover together. So simulate a bit more and watch it be stitched together. There we go. You can see it draping in. That's looking pretty good, but it looks like we got a bit too much fabric on this side and not quite enough on that side. So let's reset this pattern and make sure it really is centered before we go any further. Whoops, that's the rotation, we don't want that. Okay, and another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this whole thing ever so slightly larger. So let's just drag it a tiny bit that way and a tiny bit that way. Okay, because I'd rather have a little bit too much material at this point than a little bit too little, if that makes sense. Okay, and I'm going to have to turn this stitching off because if I try this with the stitching on, it's going to just crunch up in a ball and land on the middle of the couch somewhere. Let's go to the scene and let's take these seam line pairs and just turn the activate off. Okay, you'll see they've all gone grey, so they won't actually do anything now. Okay, and this time it looks like I should have plenty of cloth all the way around, so let's let that settle out for a second. Okay, that's nice and settled out, so now we can stitch it back together by just reactivating our seam lines, and you'll see them show up there in the viewport. and stitch. So I've actually got a couple of renders of a couch that I made that was very similar to this. So if we look here, you can see that we've got a very similar couch. The difficult bit on this couch is actually getting the piping that goes around these cushions. Well, it's not difficult, it's just a little fiddly. So in this part we'll finish off with making this couch cover, and in the next part we'll come and look at the cushions. But if we go back to Marvelous Designer, you'll see that this has all been nicely stitched together. Let's just stop that. And we got plenty of fabric around the couch. So now we can go over to our animation menu, put this on complete. Complete is just a higher standard of animation. So when this cover comes down, it won't tear so much. And for, when I'm working with animations, I might even put the cloth quality up a little bit. I'd also like to put a cotton fabric on this. And there is plenty of fabric presets about, so you don't have to always use cotton. It's just I find it a really good material for this kind of thing. But if you look under the presets, let's have a look here. So there we go. If you look under the presets, you'll find here all sorts of different, satins, leather, denim. We'll be using some leather on the cushion later. But for right now, let's just go for cotton. Okay, and back to the simulation menu. And I'm actually going to turn this to 15. Go to animation, make this simulation quality complete, and hit record. Now with this much fabric on a density of 15 and the animation going all at the same time, this is actually going to take a little while to calculate, probably about 5 minutes. So I'm going to hit pause now and see you in 5 minutes. Alright, so our couch cover simulated out quite nicely, I think. It's maybe a tad too long at the front and a tad too short at the back. So all I would do to fix that is just reset the pattern, move it backwards a little bit and try again, which I'll do in between parts. This whole thing with the animation took about 6 minutes and 20 seconds to simulate out. But like I said, I'm not using the best machine in the world. And before we go, I'm going to break this cloth, so I can just move this up. And for next time, we'll look at getting the cushions onto here. So, that's a pretty nice couch cover we got there in no time flat, using this method of bringing in objects from Maya as animations. So I thank you very much for watching, and we'll continue in the next part.